offline, I suppose. So-
Nobody's online.
No, what?
Nobody's online except for CCTV.
Oh, well, fair enough. I saw participants 3, so. You know, we have a pretty comprehensive staff report and, with summary, but. Can't pull out the service systems. But anyway, there. Yeah. So there were a few items that were noted in the staff report as not able to get positive findings. And I'm wondering if we could start with those, because I think the application is relatively clear. And if we. And the board can have questions, of course, but the staff noted that there were a few items that were missing. And wanted to see if you guys could fill that in for us. We have a complete record.
Absolutely. Again, Dave Marshall from Civil Engineering Associates for the record. In this particular case, staff report did do a fine job of summarizing the application materials. And with that, there are, towards the first portion of the staff report, a number of places where positive findings with conditions are recommended. However, as you move deeper into the report, you will find a number of places in which staff could not find positive findings because the information is missing. And I believe that in many of those cases, staff has indicated that they are the character that they feel comfortable working with the applicant in order to basically fill in those blanks. However, we need to convince you that that actually is appropriate. So that being the background, the first one is actually related to the screening for the parking lot. This is my fault. I don't know if you're familiar with Rock Point and its location with regards to the rest of the city, but it is in a very remote location. And I bring that complaint when it came to dealing with screening of parking with the understanding that I missed the boat as far as, again, how to protect the pavement from heat gain and the like. So we do need to provide supplemental trees to enable the appropriate screening percentage to carry the day. Staff did indicate that as we look at this particular plan, that was not part of your package. That's again my fault. But it's a late ad.
David, have you submitted this to the city already?
Yes.
Okay.
Only about an hour and 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's good.
Nonetheless, it is in the record. But we felt this doesn't show anything different than what the application materials indicate, but it brings it all together in kind of an easier way to see things. So this first particular rendering, prepared by Lincoln Brown, is an aerial view of the site. And when you approach the site, you come in from the top right of this drawing and you head to the bottom left. And that's the one-way entry into this particular site, all surrounded by trees for the most part. And there are 2 buildings that occupy the primary area of interest in this application. The Conference Center, which is right in the middle, and then the Van Dyke building, which is on the top left of that building set. This application actually has 2 proposed additions. It's the infill addition that connects the Van Dyke building and the Conference Center, and then the classroom Conference Center addition to the south addition. And I'll have Randy talk about that in more detail as far as the components. But getting back to the open items that are missing, what we need to do is provide that particular shading calculation. You can see some large trees that have been retained at the southwest or the bottom left of the parking lot. What we've done here is actually work with the fire marshal to improve the emergency access along the facade of the building, and essentially have reorganized the parking in a way that it isn't front and center to the activities of the school area itself. And with that, there are a number of large trees that are being retained that will be useful in the screening calculation. But it looks like we're going to need to add a couple more trees to be fully compliant as far as the number of trees per parking space, at least in the immediate vicinity that is useful for the screening component. That's something that, again, feel very comfortable with as far as working with the landscape architect on coming up with those computations, and would like to ask the board to enable us to work with staff.
Scott, what is the standard? So. How many parking spaces are there?
30.
30.
We'll say.
So it's one shade tree per 5 spaces.
So you need
30% shading.
So you need 6 shade trees. Assuming you'd agree to install those 6 shade
That is
trees.
acceptable.
Go on, sorry, Dave.
I was just going to say that we started into a preliminary design of how to satisfy that particular standard. We're comfortable in doing that and it's not adversely impacting the operations of the school. So with that, we're very comfortable with the fact that we do need fill in the blanks, and 2, that we can do that. There was also one particular component towards the end of that particular parking and circulation section where there was a question in regards to fences or retaining walls. And at this point in time, I'm not aware of any proposed, just to allow the record to be clear on that.
There's also some missing information about vehicular parking. Do the numbers on that, so this long-term bike parking.
I didn't mean to miss that, but one thing we do have, exterior parking, staff indicates that it appears to be adequate for the requirement, meeting the requirements. However, we do not show any interior long-term protected bicycle parking. So now I'll let Randy actually speak to the interior portions of the parking.
Sure. I think for the long term of bicycle parking, I think they would like to try to solve that with if that needs to be inside a structure, or maybe a biking structure on site, like a shed. And we certainly design something that is complementary of the character and style of the building to, so it feels like it belongs, not something you just.
Do you have places in mind on the site?
I think that's something that we would look with Dave on what makes sense. We do have for regular bike parking that isn't required to be in the long term. We've got some pretty good sized overhangs in a couple of areas on the building that might help provide protection. So we might target those for that piece for the kids who are coming and going on a more routine basis. But I think there's plenty of areas in sort of the islands. I'm trying to explain it, but the south part of the island there on the loop, the loop is obviously designed as a one-way. It's driving out there, or even parents dropping off students. They're trying to limit how much, and then they're planning to have the school bus do an arrangement where they pick up the students at the high school and then charter them in on one of the smaller buses. So the traffic load that's coming in and out is controlled. That's all part of the lease arrangement between the diocese and school districts, working on those details to be sensitive for that. So I think similarly, the sheds for the bicycles could be carefully located in the island area. For similar purposes, those in the long term.
One of the other questions related to this was, and it's on staff comment on Article 8, the 30 spaces provided would serve to represent, 15 additional spaces over and above what's there currently, which would serve 2 new additional classrooms. And I think staff was looking for confirmation that that's correct. Is that right, Scott?
Well, sort of.
Yeah.
The information is lacking to figure out whether you're under the parking maximum. I want to say the maximum is 7 per classroom. We have more than 7 net new, so it has to get more complicated. So we need to figure out how many classrooms you have. And if you're still above it, then we need to look at the total area of the school to see what that math comes out versus the parking maximum.
There's 9 total classrooms, 7 within
9 total with the addition.
2 in the new, and 7 within the existing.
So if you can give me something, Dave or Randy, in the application portal that reflects that. So yeah, if it's 9 total, then you're under the max.
So that would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're originally looking at an addition of 4 crossings, the desire was really to have 10. But in our budget balancing, trying to make the numbers work economically. We settled in on 8 with the 2 possible additions, so we'll do
9 total classrooms,
correct.
which then meets the bank, which satisfies.
Yeah, under the max.
I think we ran through the missing information. Are there questions from the board about the project, Jeff? I mean, I know the sites, we kind of jumped right into what was missing, but I want to make sure we covered that.
Yes, in reconfiguring the driveway parking, is it gonna be all gravel or is there pavement in there or all gravel?
So the existing conditions are deteriorating. And the idea or the intent is to go to all gravel. And basically try to get it back into a more natural feel in that particular area.
So I thought I saw asphalt there, but then I noted in the note it was all gravel.
Correct.
Yeah, they have a desire to keep it as natural feelings.
This might be Scott, there's a reference to some drawings here, like A 0.1. That was in your submittal.
So we have a number of elevations. There's one static
One elevation.
It has multiple relations on it.
Yeah, right.
Scott, do you think we can try to find those as far as at least what's in the package?
So are they in the renderings or?
Well, those are the renderings, those will be helpful to give you more of a 3-dimensional feel. But Brad is actually asking for the actual submittal information that was in the heart of the original submittal to make sure that we've got everything there for review purposes.
That's why I was just curious, if things are submittal that weren't in the packet or something like that. Because we got one elevation drawing.
Right, and then these renderings were intended to be.
And no plans.
Elevation.
There was a roof plan, elevations, but no plans.
Roof plans are on your sheets. On a civil,
Would be.
yeah.
I think there's actually, I stole one of Randy's plans to just depict what the roof character was.
Yeah.
I think. And then we have elevations, and we also have an existing condition plan. Because the intent of the design is to mimic the original.
So all the materials basically of the new building match the existing, that's basically what I wanted. And
Sort
so
of cut to the chase.
it
but I didn't
implies
want
that,
to-
but it wasn't in your cover letter, so it says it, but it doesn't say it on the elevation.
Oh, the drawing itself.
Double check that.
So this represents a 2-dimensional view of the proposed elevations, and the darker portions represent the additions. And with that, there is a colorized feet that are photos of the existing conditions that will help you give at least a little bit more depth as far as the character of the existing structure. I don't know if you have that in there, Scott.
I thought everything you submitted was uploaded to the civic clerk. But right now,
That was
the detail.
I'm in the permit system right now.
okay.
Do you have a file name you look for? And I just see this one labeled as proposed elevations, which is what I just had. I don't see anything that says anything about else.
Photos?
No. It was a sheet prepared by Randy's office that specifically provided call outs of all of the existing characteristics. And I know that we talked with,
Existing elevation, photos and materials.
let's go with that.
Yeah, it's the big packet of 36 sheets.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one. So
I haven't totally lost it. Good.
Right.
So you may need to zoom in a little bit just to get a better flavor of this. But again, those are, and I'll let the architect speak.
So yeah, so the intent there was to kind of call out the material types for, we have cedar shingle kind of shaped sods, standing seam, roof, all new materials are intended to work and blend in with those existing materials seamlessly.
And what's in the middle is actually the original design plans, the original approved plans for the project dating to
1980.
1980.
Pre-computer.
Yes. Colin still assures me that it's still the way to go.
That's what I think. Thank you.
Yeah. So as far as like general circulation go for the building, we're not changing the patterns of how the building's operated, or the main entry points are still going to be the focal point of the main entries, and the egresses are still largely going to be there. The infill, there's no function in the infill connection other than circulation. So that's designed to be open and glassy, so you can kind of see through. That's where the elevator will be located. So we can have ADA access to both upper levels and both building structures. So that's all an open interior piece in that linkage. And then obviously the two classrooms on the south elevation will have an egress exit component off its corridor, but it won't be a primary entrance.
Anything you want to add as far as these particular renderings?
So this would be, if you parked in the new reconfigured lot, this would be the formal entry just to the right here. And this is the image that Lincoln helped us put together here to give an idea of the two classrooms. So those two windows would give an easterly view of those classrooms, and then there's the quarters on the far side, the west side. So there's windows, borrowed light, if you will, in the corridor where you can see out to the west and get the lake views out the west. So the opening in the south elevation here, sort of the triangle opening there, that's the exit kind of opening. So that's designed to be a sort of a negative reveal area to protect the vestibule entrance there. So if they are navigating back and forth to the Kerr building, which is the chapel that's on site, which we don't have any proposed work for, that would be the primary circulation path between the two buildings.
So there is another rendering of the opposite side of that south addition. The west side, thank you.
So two classrooms, west side, as Dave mentioned, you can kind of obviously see the intended circulation pattern. All of that is existing. We will be modifying the piece that currently is south of the conference center to wrap around the new classroom addition here. And on the far end, you can see the conference center dining hall. As that spills out in the nicer periods of the year, they'll eat outside a lot. And obviously in the summer events that the diocese will run, they'll still have a lot of outdoor activity. And it's sort of with the linkage of the elevator, now that that's closed off, it kind of creates sort of a protected courtyard feeling enclosure, which I think for the school's purposes, when they're using their periods of the year, helps contain an outdoor classroom feel of an area that's.
There is one more rendering, probably the last one. I believe. There we go. That represents the infill.
This is the infill, which, although is the same sort of easterly elevation, we are intending to kind of keep as much of the dense tree growth between there, so it feels, you know, on the approach, you won't see this unless you go down the drive path to that entrance, and that's where we're proposing to have the waste container, recycling and utility. This, to us, this is a little bit more of the back of the house support area. Although we've provided a few handicap accessible spots there for convenience. As this obviously where the elevator is, that someone may want to enter at that point for better convenience depending on the program.
I mean, in all fairness, you can't really see the building from anywhere but the market.
Right, it's a dense site.
Or a. Any other questions from the board? Is there anybody online who wants to speak on this application? Who joined after Scott said no one was online? No?
Nobody online, AJ.
All right, well, thank you for that. I think we have everything we need.
Yes.
We'll close. Maybe I'll just do it this way. I'd make a motion. It would have been consent, I think, if we had everything else. Yeah. On number ZP 23-494 Rock Point Circle, that we approve the application, subject to the staff's recommendations and conclusions, with the inclusion of the representations made at the DRB hearing that the 6 shade trees will be provided, that the number of classrooms total is 9, and that 2 long-term bike parking spaces will be provided in an enclosure or shelter on site. And final site plans will be provided to staff with that. Okay, seconds that? Discussion?
And the fencing stuff,
No fencing is shown.
yes.
No fencing. All those in favor? There you go. We got the decision signed up.
Recording stopped.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That adjourns our meeting for the night.
Yes.